Welcome back to Touring the AFC South. I'm your host, Mike Patton. And of course, one of the biggest injuries in the NFL happened this past Sunday with Derrick Henry suffering a foot injury that required surgery. That happened on Tuesday of this week. There's been no timetable set from the Titans, and of course, Tennessee head coach Mike Vrabel has, he hasn't said whether he's coming back or not or any kind of thing there. Initial reports would be 6 to 10 weeks before we could possibly see Henry on the field. Of course, we don't know for sure, but with what we do know, what we can, I guess, talk about, we're going to break all that down. Of course, the information on his injury was someone who's definitely familiar with the human anatomy and the human body, and bones, and things like that. Dr. Erin Wilson, thank you for coming back on again.
Hey, how you doing?
All right. One thing I noticed was Henry maybe got his injury earlier in the game, yet he was able to go back on the field and finish the game. I noticed he was walking a little differently as well. How was he able to finish the game with a foot injury he suffered?
Well, one of the main things about the fracture, it goes back to the anatomy. So the Jones fracture, kind of similar to the injury that Carson Wentz had earlier in August, like around training camp. It's a term used for a fracture at the base of your fifth metatarsal. So that's going to be towards the outside of your foot, like in the middle of your foot, along the side where your pinky toe is. So if you're looking at the foot, you have the toes, right? And then you have your heel, and then you have the bones that are in the middle that kind of connect those two ends of your foot. And then when you're talking about where exactly on the foot from medial inside to lateral, it's going to be the outside of your foot. So it's the middle bone, the furthest to the outside, and it's usually some type of fracture. Could be a stress fracture, or it could be, something where a piece of the bone actually chips off, which they call an avulsion fracture. Obviously, the Titans haven't really given us too many details, which nobody should be surprised about. But as far as him being able to continue to play, that's not necessarily an injury where structurally you can't continue to walk. It's painful, it's tender to the touch. You're not going to be able to perform or weight bear as normal, which you saw, which is why he didn't finish. But it's not something like ACL tear where you can't bear weight on your leg, because literally the ligament that's connecting your patella to your lower leg is ripped. You see what I mean?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Now I just have a question. I don't profess to be in the medical field, but if you were the trainer, would you have let him go back in the game?
I mean, it depends, because when you're out there, you can't tell that it's a Jones fracture just by him limping. It could be anything. It could be a bruised metatarsal. It could be, plantar fasciitis acting up, could be a heel spur, could be an ankle sprain. The only way you can really diagnose that it's a fracture is with the x-ray. So unless they took him off the field and took him to the back and x-rayed his foot, there's no way that the trainer could say, oh, he has a Jones fracture, but I'm going to let him go back in. You know what I mean? So as far as on-field decisions, it's always a collective effort based on your experience, based on your ability to examine the outside of the foot, touch it, feel it, get subjective complaints from your patient, who's the athlete, and then based on that, you make an educated decision on whether or not they can continue to play. But as far as to confirm it 100%, they would have had to x-ray his foot during the game, which we know probably didn't happen.
Gotcha. Okay, now as far as a running back, I know there's a few different things that you should use your feet for, to plant, things like that. Now, what kind of schedule, I would say, is he looking at in terms of trying to make it back on the field?
Any human, whether he be an athlete or a 50-year-old man who has a Jones fracture or any type of fracture, your bone needs time to heal. And bone, any bone that has a fracture in it to fully heal is going to take at least 6 to 8 weeks to heal. And then the biggest part of that particular fracture, where it's located in your foot, there's poor blood supply, which makes that one of the slower healing fractures, because you need blood supply, you need oxygen in order for the fractures to heal. So he's going to have to rest. He's going to have to be off of it. And when he just had surgery Tuesday, he's going to have to be off that foot, I mean, for at least a couple of weeks before they can even think about trying to do any type of rehab or weight bearing or anything like that. He has to be off, but there's a period of immobilization. There's a period of rest where he can't do anything but allow his foot to heal, because bone has to heal before you can work on anything else. So, the 6 to 10 week time frame that they're giving, that's a lot of impact now. As far as turning back to the field, that's just going to remain to be seen. I mean, he's a phenomenal athlete. He's always in shape. There's always videos about his off-season workouts and what he does to keep himself at the top of his game. So as far as that's concerned, I don't think that they're worried about it. Like you said, they know he's going to do everything possible to get back on the field. He just can't control how fast bones heal. That's something that's outside of his control.
Yep, unless he's like an X-Men or anything.
Yeah,
like
unless he's
that.
Wolverine, I don't see him coming back before the end of the season, regular season anyway.
Got you. So definitely, whether he's a small guy or a big guy, of course, that's not going to affect, how fast he comes back. It's
no, it won't. It won't affect how fast he comes back. It might have something to do with, the injury itself happening. He's a very big guy. His running style, he runs very fast for being as muscular, as in shape that he's in. He carries the ball quite a bit. Jones fracture is more often than not a stress fracture, which stress fractures usually come from high impact, high level activity. He gets a lot of reps. He gets a lot of carries, and his running style is very hard on the body, so I would say have this type of injury. And then a lot of times, people get this type of injury when they're doing something where their foot is kind of planted and twisted, which we know is very common in running backs. So all of that goes into play. And then plus just simple anatomy. A lot of people who have higher arches in their foot, they're more susceptible to this type of injury because they don't weight bear in their foot evenly. They distribute a lot of their weight on the outside of their foot because the inside of their foot, their arches are so high. So, just other things to think about.
Got you. I'm going to end it with this question right here. I do have one other question. I'm sorry, before I get the final one. Is there going to be a level of pain tolerance involved with him coming back or trying to come back this season as well?
Oh, for sure. Especially if he tries to come back closer to the 6 week mark. Obviously when you're talking about high level athletes like that, they have access to around the clock rehab, that the average person who is rehabbing from a Jones fracture necessarily wouldn't, so they can have rehab 2, 3, 4 times a day where you're working on pain management, you're icing, you're using E-stim to kind of work on any nerve pain he might have, massage therapists, they have all these things at their disposal as far as getting back fast and managing the pain. But, once you start weight bearing on it and kind of you're putting shoes on again, you're putting cleats on, it becomes a different kind of ball game. And then, he's more than likely the surgery that he had, the pin is going to stay in his foot. So, surgeries put you back together. They never make you normal. Your foot's never the same. But they're going to put it back so that anatomically you can do what you need to do, which is for him, he needs to be able to run, cut, jump, do all this stuff. So he's going to deal with a level of pain, like I said, especially if he's trying to come back closer to the 6 week mark, which if we're in week 8, that's going to put him week 14, 15, and depending on where Tennessee is as far as the playoff picture, it may not be necessary to rush him back closer to 6. They may be able to push him out to 8, which, the more rest you can get on that type of injury, the better. So either way, it's something that he's going to have to deal with over the next 3-4 months. I expect him to have some type of level of pain, which, most players play with some level of pain anyway. It's a hard game.
Right. And, that leads to my last question. Could there be any lingering pain for the rest of his career with this?
Now, I don't necessarily think it has to be a career-long thing. Like I said, I've never seen Derrick Henry's foot, so I don't necessarily know, if he has super high arches or how he runs or what type of cleats he wears or, things like that. All of those things matter, especially when you're talking about the foot. Just like people with low arches, they tend to be more prone to high ankle sprains just because of the way that they bear so much weight on the inside of their foot. So, it could linger for a couple of months. But like I said, we've made so many strides as far as rehab and pain management and off-season protocols and, dry needling and all kind of stuff that can be used. I mean, I don't think that this has to be a career thing. And he's still fairly young, and he takes very good care of his body. So I think that is something that, of course, I think it's going to last him the rest of this year, even if he does come back. But I definitely don't think it has to be a career-long thing.
Gotcha. Well, definitely, I want to thank you for coming on, and thank you for kind of breaking down the foot injury and kind of walking us through where it may have been and what kind of road he has ahead. Thank you for coming on again. And is there anything, you got going on or want to talk about in terms of what you have going on, or everybody can reach you for any medical advice?
Anybody who ever wanted to reach me can follow me on Twitter. Erin, ERIN, V as in Victoria, 1985. The same name on Instagram, capital ERINV 1985. Me and my colleagues also just opened up our own private physical therapy and wellness clinic in Midtown Atlanta. It's called Peach Rehab. You can follow our clinic Instagram at Peach, PEACH, all one word. So that's kind of what I got going on. My alma mater, Florida State, is currently sitting at 3-5. So I'm kind of dealing with that. But my secondary team is Alabama, and they've only lost 1 game. So that's where I'm at with it.
You knew where I was going. But hey, I will say this: Tennessee has done better than I thought they would in terms of Tennessee Wolves.
Secondary team.
What's that?
Gotta have a secondary team when your school disappoints you. You gotta have a backup plan.
I understand. Thank you for coming on, and everyone, you've been listening to Touring the AFC South with your host Mike Patton.